Hi there, welcome to the Gardens and Graveyards channel. My name is Charisma, and today we're meeting in the garden, and we're going to put together a whole bunch of different videos for you here. Over a period of time, we're going to start building a dead hedge for our poison garden. I've mentioned this a few times in different videos as we were preparing to create our poison garden. And now it's time to get serious about the dead hedge. We're getting ready to do a huge pruning job, and that for me is the whole point of our dead hedge. Is one, we want to create a barrier of this poison garden so that local dogs and cats can get in here, but we don't want dogs and toddlers to just wander through here without supervision. Just because they seem to be a little bit more mouth feel curious. So we want to just protect this area. I also have an idea of two other areas in the garden that I'd like to have dead hedges, just for the purpose of utilizing the prune job, or like the pruning that we do in our garden, doing something with those pruning pieces. In the past, we have been just piling them in random piles around the garden as like a slow composting brush pile. We do not burn. Our property doesn't have enough space around our house to make us feel comfortable with burning. And it's not great for the environment anyways. We also do not haul our debris off site because we create so much debris because we are such avid gardeners that we would fill up those containers quicker than they could get hauled off, and we'd still have to find places to stash our compost piles, right? So we also don't have garbage pickup. Our neighborhood does. It's available to us. We've just chosen to take our garbage ourselves. We only need to go to the landfill maybe every 6 to 7 weeks. So having a monthly pickup wasn't necessary for us. Plus, we were dealing with bears trying to break into the garbage, having to pick up all that mess. It's not fun. Buy expensive garbage cans that are locking. Remember when to take the garbage out on holidays and all the business. Now we could just take it whenever we want. It's in our garage and safe, and we don't have to worry about bears. So and usually garbage pickup and debris pickup are like the same company, and it's just easier for us in the long run to do it all ourselves. And so we've just had these piles of debris around the garden, and some piles are like a convenience pile, like where we do a lot of gardening and it's just convenient to place it there. And some of the piles have been created because we ran out of room and the piles were getting so huge we needed to create new piles. Well, I'm claiming garden spaces that some of those piles are in, and now we need to do something more efficient with this garden debris that we are creating. And I was doing a little bit of research. I stumbled upon dead hedges, and they completely make sense to me. They're very beneficial to wildlife, and we'll talk about that more at the end of this video after the dead hedge has been created, and we can go into a little bit more detail on that. Today, I just want to kind of give you an idea of where we're doing the dead hedge, the general concept, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to start the process. So to begin with, we are at the edge of our poison garden. This is the medicine garden over this direction. And then we just get turned around here. And this is our poison garden. And we are, we've started to buy components, but we'll have a metal gate to here. There will be like metal panels and then a big gate right here, and then we'll start the dead hedge this direction. Of course, we have the house as one fence line, and then this table is still being built, but it'll have a back, so that will completely block this line. And then the poison garden will end at the edge of our house over there. So we really just need fencing all the way around here. And so what we're going to do is, we had some leftover boards that we started with. I'm also going to be scavenging, scavenging, is that a word? Scavenging. Today I'm going to be digging through our debris piles and finding long, like pieces of wood to finish up this fence. For example, if I were to cut this limb right here, this would make a really great fence post. If I just cut off these little pieces, I have a relatively straight post that I could put in the ground. And those are the kind of pieces that I'm going to be looking for in our debris pile. So what we want to do is create a fence line essentially to this rhododendron, and then we're going to turn the corner and we're going to come out this way. And it'll stop here. So it's going to go like this and then in. It'll stop here. We'll put in a gate, and then it'll start again this way and go basically through the gulf area and line up with the corner of our house. Now that fence line is going to be at a later date, but that's going to be the long-term goal. Today I'm focusing on this space right here. So I need fence posts to line up right here. So the idea of the dead hedge is you're going to put posts, whether they are man-made, whether they are, you know, branches from trees you've cut down, or they could be official posts if you want it to like be really substantial and have a really uniform look and effect. That's fine too. But you want to post, the posts are going to be, in this case, about 18 inches apart, width-wise, and then we're going every 3 feet this way, just to give it really good structure. We started doing this just to see how it would kind of look, and we put some short pieces in here, but what I really like to do is get some longer pieces and weave between these posts on the inside and the outside, kind of like a wattle fence on the bottom, and on the top at least, maybe all the way through, depending on how much flexible stems I find. One, that's going to look prettier. It's definitely going to make the fence stronger. And then if we do that on both sides, and then we could fill the middle with the smaller twiggy type things. We could put some greens in there too, but mostly it'll just be twigs and bramble. So you've been seeing a little bit of this as we've created the poison garden. Essentially, where we planted this oak leaf hydrangea was a giant pile of debris for this area before we started developing it as a poison garden. It has been a shade garden for several years, and so we've just been piling brush and weeds and whatever over here. We removed all of the woody debris, most of the compost. We've used some of it to create a hill to plant this hydrangea on for good drainage. But that's like an example of one of the piles that we are eliminating from the garden. Now we're going to walk out of the poison garden. This is essentially going to be the edge of the poison garden right here. And we walk into our fantasy trails. But this, behind this wall, this pallet wall, which makes everything look nice and tidy, we have this giant pile of debris. Right? And so this is what I'm going to be doing is I want to start, the chipmunks are going to hate me because they hang out in this space, and I'm going to be in their habitat for a little while. This is definitely habitat for other critters, so I'm a little nervous about it, but essentially what I want to do is I want to pull out branches like this and start making piles that are like, this is the short branching pile, and then, you know, I want to pull out some bigger pieces that I might be able to use, like I would say like these I could use for like the wattle fencing, the weaving, right? Nice, long, straight, but they're not thick enough in diameter to create a fence post. Something like this, oh, it's gonna be, is probably too rotted. I'll do this one-handed. Too rotted and too curvy to use. So it's just gonna be like, I'm just gonna be going through this giant pile looking for a handful of stakes. I think I need 14 stakes to start that dead hedge. We'll go up and look at our other pile that we can comb through. And our way up there, we'll stop and look at this Escallonia. This is really the motivator for me to get this dead hedge structure done. I'm not really looking for the debris that's going to go in the hedge right now because I need to cut this down ASAP. It is failing and the rain is coming, and as soon as this thing starts getting heavy, we are going to start having big problems because the branches are cracking and breaking. So I need somewhere to put this entire shrub. This is not going to be a prune. This is going to be a removal. And this is a lot of debris. And have it hauled off would cost quite a bit of money. We looked into renting a wood chipper, which we can't even get down into this space. So we'd have to haul all this stuff up onto our driveway. We would have to get the entire project done in a day, because to rent the size of wood chipper that I would need, it's like $800 a day. So, like, I needed to find something to do with all this debris, and creating a dead hedge is going to be the perfect solution. Now, I cannot use even these young branches that are healthy. I cannot use those as posts because Escallonia is very much like willow, and if I stick a branch in the ground, it will start growing. So unless I want an Escallonia hedge, those edges cannot be stuck in the ground. They could be piled on top of each other and we'll still have sprouting, but we'll be able to control that growth much better than if it was able to root into the ground. Now, across from the Escallonia, we have another pile of debris. This is mostly not woody debris. This is mostly like green debris and weeds. So I'm not going to go through. There might be some woody debris from when we've pruned this Escallonia down on the bottom, but I'm not going to, unless I get real desperate, I'm not going to worry about looking for those or looking through that pile. But it is one of the piles that I would like to get rid of so that I can have access to the backside, which is all blackberry, which needs to be controlled, right? So these are just, things that after a while they start accumulating and you gotta deal with. Then our original compost piles are up here. And this area is also going to have a whole new makeover next spring. And I will continue to have compost back here, but it needs to be in a slightly different position. And it definitely needs to look nicer. Okay, something just fell out of the tree out there. I think it was probably a pine cone. Just fell right into, it's like a big chunk of wood. Just fell right into this. It scared me. Okay. Anyhow, need to do something with this pile. So we have finished compost here. We've got our working slow compost here. And then we do have a lot of woody debris in this area. It's not exclusively woody debris, and there's bindweed growing all through it, but there is a lot of woody debris in there. So this is the pile I'm actually going to start with because I happen to know of some big, good sized branches that are in this space. So basically what I'm going to do is disassemble my compost and put it in different size piles, which seems like an exorbitant amount of work and quite overwhelming. But my goal is just to work on it slowly and, you know, an hour or two at a time, just put on an audiobook, sort through my compost. Right now, I'm really just looking for those stakes, and that's like my #1 priority because I know the Escallonia is going to provide all the other materials for that dead hedge in the area that we're going to start with. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and I'm not going to really film sorting through the compost, but I will share anything that I, you know, sort of come up against, or any insights that I have along the way, and I will show you the piles that are created as they get created, and then of course we will take you on the journey of creating the actual dead hedge. And then at the end of this video, we'll talk in detail about why we're building a dead hedge, like what are the benefits of building dead hedges, and the ancient practices of using dead hedges and why they fell out of practice after World War I. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy watching this process, and I'd love to hear if you have a dead hedge, if you've ever made a dead hedge, if you're thinking about it, if you have any questions, please pop those in the comments below, and hopefully this video will give you a lot of insight on how you might be able to build your own dead hedge. After a couple of hours of sorting through just this one pile, we have enough posts to do the first part of our fence. Spencer was out here earlier with me cutting the post to size and creating like a sharp end that we can pound into the ground. So let me turn the camera around and show you what I ended up doing with this pile, and yeah, I'll just leave you with that. The fact is, we'll probably be doing this with each of our compost piles over the next, you know, few weeks or months. You know, it's a good winter project on cool, non-rainy days. So yeah, let me show you what we got through and the pile sorts that I did. So I've been putting long posts over here, and then Spencer comes over with a chainsaw and cuts them to the length that we want, and just makes kind of a sharp edge like this so that we can pound it into the ground. And then the tops are flat, so it's easy to either use, you know, a mallet hammer thing or a post pounder. These are barren sticks that are weird shaped that aren't going to be useful for posts, but they will be good for the dead hedge. These are just like some weird shaped stumps that can be either thrown in the bottom of the dead hedge or cut down to wield appropriately. They're just those extreme crotches can get caught on stuff, so I just set it to the side so we knew what was going on. This big pile, well, let's see, we have barren twigs over here that are just shorter in length than these ones. This pile is more like brush and twiggy, and there's a lot of dead blackberry cane in here, so there's a lot of pokey things. It was getting quite tall, so I started another one of the similar debris. This pile is kind of like the end, and there is a little, you know, a little of the same kind of stuff as this, but mostly it was like really small twiggy stuff that'll break down pretty quickly. And this is where the whole pile was. You could see it's kind of been raked out, and I got pushed past the pallet a little bit and started with all this business. There's a big pile of wood in there. Underneath those twigs, there's bigger chunks. This is a very long, like 12-foot branch that's tangled up in bindweed and blackberry, so I just need to get in there and pull it out of there and pull the bindweed down and all that stuff. But this debris will be useful for either the other side of the dead hedge or a dead hedge that we do over in this area. So we'll continue sorting, but as a motivator, we want to get these posts in the ground. I also saved this one for a corner. I thought it might be an interesting support for the corner maybe. And then this is my pile of bindweed or morning glory that I need to put in a plastic bag and throw away. Because every little piece of a bindweed just grows more bindweed. So it's a never-ending battle over here, but I do what I can to eradicate it if possible. I do have a plan for my bindweed that doesn't include throwing it in garbage sacks, but I need to get the structures in place. So in the meantime, let's get it off the property. But yeah, that's where we're at this point, and we put a few posts in the ground already. We've turned the corner, and now we need to get these guys in the ground, and it'll be set up and ready so that we can cut back this escalonia, or cut it down. You can see there's a lot of broken branches in there, and it's just really weak and falling down on itself, collapsing down on itself. So that's the motivator behind getting this dead hedge built, or the structure for the dead hedge. All right, well, we'll just keep bringing you along on the journey as the dead head gets put together, and we'll see you at the end, and we'll talk a little bit more about the whole project. So watch this footage, enjoy, and I'll see you in a minute. So now that you have seen us start putting together our dead hedge, we have put like probably 90-ish% of our Escallonia in these two sections, and I had to cut down some birch limbs off my roof, and they landed right in this area, which was perfect, so I just added those in. We're going to turn the camera around. I'm going to show you a little bit more detail of what the hedge is looking like and how it's getting put together. And then we're going to do the next step, which is hedge the dead hedge. And then we'll talk a little bit more about why I'm doing this. Okay, so you can see here how now in between the posts, it's very full of foliage, mostly Escallonia, which is this plant right here. And what I did periodically is I took some branches and weaved them in between, so they kind of go back and forth between the posts, and I did that on all four sides. So sun's gonna be in my way. It goes one direction and then it turns a corner and it goes another direction. The reason I did it more on the bottom of all four sides, and then I did a little bit more on the top. I did maybe like a row in the middle, which is what I've started to do over here. And the reason I'm doing that is just to help support these posts a little bit more. They are not sunk into the ground super far. They are not cemented in. We just did a little pilot hole with our auger and pounded the stakes in. So our ground is very wet in this area, and it is sandy soil. So they're not like the most stable thing ever, but just the weight of the debris is kind of holding itself in place, which is fine. These kind of give us a guidepost, and weaving the branches, you could see I've done a little weaving right there, help just support those posts a little bit more. And what we've been doing is just layering the Escallonia branches. We're not really cutting them down, or we're definitely not stripping them, anything like that. We're just laying them down in big pieces, and knowing that they will sink over time, they will break down over time. One of the things that I am doing is, for example, I'm doing a good job of it, so let's take all right, let's grab a branch somewhere. This one's kind of falling out. Okay, this is a small example, but what I'm doing is I'm taking the end of the branch and I'm shoving it as deep in as I can. That secures the branch, and it creates more like structure branching inside of this hedge, creating a much more dense, compact hedge kind of situation. Now you'll notice that I have a rhododendron here in the middle. So the branches in the actual corner are just kind of loose in there, and then they get compact again on the other side. And I did that on purpose so that I'm not restricting the growth on this rhododendron. But I think it'll be fine. This one branch right here is kind of leaning, but it's super loose. We'll see what happens. I might just cut it off right here so it's not leaning on this live branch. Outside of that, that's kind of the gist. We did have a bunch of rot, heartwood rot at the base of our Escallonia, and it came out in chunks, so we cut them down to the width of our hedge here and just laid them, kind of stacked them like firewood, kind of, and it weighed down the debris that we had in here. This is all very, very loose, so it'll compact down. I can push it down. We could put branches like heavier branches. This side is, we started this side after we started that side. So this is 1 and then 2. So this this section right here is really dense. And then this section has plenty of room to grow, to continue holding more debris. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I have loppers, I have a hedger, and I have a chainsaw. I'm mostly gonna be using my hedgers, and I'm going to literally hedge this thing so that all these little kind of guys get hedged off, you know, cut off, and it looks like a nice neat hedge. And then we'll just take that debris and throw it into the center. Probably this edge right here will be the most obvious, because this is just like all the leftover debris kind of sticking out the edge there. But I will use a chainsaw if I need to, or, you know, clippers if it's more appropriate. So let's go ahead and do that. It sounds like somebody else is using a chainsaw today too. So I'm just gonna set up my camera, hedge this space, and then we'll meet back here after I'm done.
That is great.
There we have it. Now that it's all nice and tidy, cleaned up, you can see how it has now created a fence-like hedge right here, and it's all nice and dense. You can clearly see it. It's pretty awesome, actually. We'll look at this side. where it's still a little bit loose on this side, but you can see that there's room to grow. And I cleaned it up over here, so there's, you know, a pathway between the hydrangea that we just planted over here and the dead hedge. There's plenty of space around. Awesome. All right, our first dead hedge is complete. Well, as much as complete as it can be. You can constantly add to these. As I was showing you, you can push down. It's going to break down. I'll be able to add debris in. There's a couple of corners that are pretty loose, and I can definitely add more debris in there. I want to continue the hedge on the other side of the garden and make another corner to have this dead hedge fencing all the way around this garden room. And then I have some other ideas of other areas where I think a dead hedge would be a really good option for us in this on this property. So let me tell you a little bit about dead hedges. They were a very common way to fence in your areas before like 1830 in England. So, and probably everywhere, but that was like kind of when it started to change. Gardens started becoming more aesthetically pleasing. The Victorian gardens started coming into play in the late 1800s, where we started having these very strict, formal, beautiful gardens that were like walled gardens of boxwoods and arborvitaes and English ivy and all these types of walled-in gardens. Laurel, like so many different beautiful hedging plants came into play, and they kept playing with the cultivars and creating even better and better specimens for hedging. And today we have thousands of varieties to choose from. I mean, boxwoods alone, off the top of my head, I could think of 20 varieties of boxwood. Boom, just like that. And arborvitae the same way, junipers the same way. So we haven't had the need for dead hedging to aesthetically create a fence, right? We've also created an industry worldwide where fencing is very easily accessible, either through mills that create lumber that make fencing, wood fencing, or iron fencing came into a big boom in the late 1800s. All the different kinds of beautiful fencing. Right now we have PVC fencing and recycled plastic fencing and all these different types of fencing options that are very pretty to look at. They keep the critters out, they keep the pets in, they keep you know, intruders or just strangers away from the garden. They keep your toddlers safe. All these wonderful things, chain link fencing, like around your swimming pools and everything like that. But farmers also started using, instead of dead hedging, they started using, well, they started using cross fencing, wood typically. Now they use a lot of PVC fencing. Of course, some farmers like continue to do a beneficial hedge, meaning they planted up plants specifically to attract beneficials to their garden spaces or to their farms. So that continued to play a part in the farmers' world, and homeowners started implementing that. I saw a really big boom in like the pollinator fencing or pollinator hedging over the last 10 years or so, although naturalists have been implementing those into their gardens much longer than 10 years. But when I first started working in the horticulture world, it was sort of like a renewed phenomenon to bring beneficials into the garden, creating butterfly gardens and pollinator gardens and that kind of thing. And I still think that the average homeowner, when I'm just looking around neighborhoods, I'm not really seeing that still. So we have a ways to go to continue to support our beneficial insects that support our ecosystem as a whole. That is where the dead hedging comes in, and is having a resurgence in farms and homeowners, especially homeowners with like large pieces of property, because you can kind of tuck them away and it doesn't matter if they're aesthetically pleasing because nobody's really seeing them. But a dead hedge has so many wonderful benefits. Not only does it keep the critters out and the kitties in, or out of a dangerous space, obviously, but I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on materials, and we prune so much. We have huge old shrubs, we have trees, we have tons of woody perennials, tons of just like annuals and leafy debris, right? Just lots and lots of debris. We live on 3/4 of an acre. I'm an avid gardener. I'm constantly, like, almost every time I'm in the garden, there's a wheelbarrow full of debris to put in a compost pile. So we have these big compost piles set up all over our garden, and they're not pretty. There's no rhyme or reason other than convenience. And I really wanted to start doing something that was, you know, aesthetically pleasing to a point, and just using some of these spaces. Some of the debris piles are so huge because they just keep getting bigger and bigger. It's taking up landscape spaces that I would like to use to garden in. So I did some research. I discovered that dead hedging was an option. Now the dead hedges will only have woody debris. I mean, you can put a little bit of like leaf matter. I'm not stripping this wood and putting only woody debris in it. They will have branches with leaves on it, which is fine. And you saw me, I cleaned up the hedge and then I just put the leafy matter and, you know, dead leaves inside of the hedge. That's totally fine. But we can use our slow compost piles for like the annuals and the real leafy kind of stuff, and our grass clippings and that kind of thing can go in a different kind of like slow composting pile. And then we have spaces like the dead hedge for our really woody debris that's hard to, you know, make more space for. So that's really exciting for me personally, to have a place to put all of our debris that looks decent. The other part is dead hedges play a huge role in supporting our natural wildlife. It creates spaces for birds to nest. It creates pockets for salamanders and frogs. It obviously, any of the like beetles and slugs and, you know, buggy things that like to eat broken down dead debris, they can live in there. That's fantastic. That's kind of the gist of it. Obviously, small mammals can nest in there as well. Mice, voles. Moles are under the ground, but they'll probably come up there because the moles come up everywhere. Anytime I do anything new, they come up and like, check it out. But, you know, I'm really excited. We have lots of birds. This is going to be a great place for the birds to hang out and, you know, maybe make a nest or just feel protected. Yeah, so that is the dead hedge for our poison garden, and the whole gist about why I do dead hedging, and when I continue to use dead hedges in the future, I'll probably refer back to this video because I'm not going to go through this whole spiel every single time I do dead hedging. But I do think it was really important for me to share why I'm doing the dead hedging and what it means to my garden, what it means to me as a gardener, and show you how you could do it in an aesthetically pleasing way. I've seen other people do like more structure, right? Using actual fence posts that are painted and they're like really, you know, they're all equal and it's even more aesthetically pleasing. I've seen people use exclusively, or like fence posts, the round fence posts, that looked really pretty too. I saw somebody do that. Some people just use like the same kind of tree branch, and they're all cut to the same height and measured out and all that kind of stuff. We used what we had on hand. We had a couple of fence posts. We had a bunch of tree branches, and we did space them out, mostly just for structure purposes, not for aesthetic purposes, although I do like that they're evenly spread out so it doesn't catch my eye like, oh, that's really unequal. What else? Oh, and then the other part is I've seen people do it really wild where, you know, maybe nothing matches, and maybe they don't even use that many support posts, maybe just like one on each end, and they just kind of pile up the debris, and they don't use hedgers and shear it back and make it like tidy like a boxwood hedge. It's just a woody pile that's sort of corralled, and it's a little bit more wild and maybe a little bit more loose. I don't know. I loved it when I saw somebody take a hedger to it and tidy it up. That just what really sold me. I was like thinking, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I like this idea. And then I saw somebody do like the hedging, and then I saw a couple more people do it that way, and I was like, perfect, that's what I'm gonna do. So you know, there's lots of different ways that you could do it, but I think this is the best way for me, and I'm excited about it, and it feels really good to have a productive place to put all my woody debris that looks nice. And one more thing that I'm going to say about this particular dead hedge is, yes, most of it is Escallonia, and yes, I do expect it to sprout because Escallonia is a very opportunist plant. So I do expect to get some Escallonia sprouts in here. I have two schools of thought on that. One is they're not that hard to just cut back and like keep, you know, cutting them until they don't keep growing, because there's no roots on any of this, right? But there is leafy debris that is touching the ground. It could create roots. I might have to pull out some Escallonia babies around the edges, but if they grow in the middle, and I don't know until they're big, my second school of thought is, what if I end up with an Escallonia hedge? That's totally fine. I wouldn't hate it. And it would be totally free. So whatever. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear in the comments below if you have a dead hedge, if you've heard of dead hedges, if you think you want to create a dead hedge, if you have any questions about them, anything that you're wondering about, like why I did something, how I did something, if you've come up with some ideas or thoughts that maybe I haven't thought of yet, please put those in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation about this. And make sure that you're subscribed and you smash that like button. It helps me grow my channel. And of course, I really hope that you are celebrating your life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.